Yo, what's up? We are now at the Mjøsbrua, heading towards Lillehammer. And in this video, I'm going to talk about Tesla Supercharger network opening up for other car manufacturers. So it's going to be a long ramble. It's more like in a podcast we are shooting in 4K. Oh yes, I will only do the 4K if I can do it unedited like now and just have this podcast style. It seems to work great and people also love it. And I try to find some nice landscape while we are just talking, because this talk might be a little bit long. So first I should talk a little bit about the background to explain to you how the Supercharger network works and how it started. So at least in Europe it started in 2013, and the Supercharger network, I mean, it came with Tesla Model S that was introduced in Europe in 2013. You know, the type, the plug they used back then, it was well, it's still in use now. It's a modified Type 2. So technically the Type 2 standard only supports AC charging, not DC. But Tesla did something so it would work also for DC charging, and it only works for Tesla and for the Superchargers. No other car manufacturer or hardware manufacturer uses that standard. I don't know, I think it's even developed by Tesla. But back then, you know, when Tesla were designing Model S, remember it came out in America in 2012. So it means that they must have been designing it and planning it many years before, maybe before 2010 even. And back then, there simply didn't exist any CCS. CCS was introduced in Europe in 2013 along with the Volkswagen e-up. So Tesla, they knew what the Model S was capable of doing, about 90 kilowatt in the beginning and then 120 kilowatt. And CHAdeMO was simply too slow back then. It was just maximum 50 kilowatt, and then CCS wasn't out yet. So that's why they developed their own modified modified Type 2. And you guys probably know the story. So when it was introduced in America, first the version 1 Supercharger supported 90 kilowatt, and then when they introduced it to Europe, it was 120 kilowatt. They branded it as 135 kilowatt, but it was about 118 kilowatt we will peak at with the Model S 85 kilowatt hour packs back then, like Millennium Falcon. Yeah, what else should I say? And then, yeah, so but then after many years they came with CCS like today. But I think I still need to, I want to explain more about this Supercharger stuff. They actually use Tesla's onboard charger in the Supercharger. So Tesla, well, in the old days, one onboard charger was 11 kilowatt, and then you could configure the car to have dual charger, which meant that they put two chargers together and you could get 22 kilowatt onboard charger. That was pretty kick-ass back in the old days, actually very useful today. But Tesla also did something brilliant, because they also used that hardware in the Supercharger. So the Supercharger stack would consist of 12 of these onboard chargers, which means that they didn't have to engineer to develop a separate Supercharger module. And each charger, like I mentioned, it can output 11 kilowatt, but they actually push it further, and the Supercharger, I think it was about 13 kilowatt they pushed from each of them. So that means they could output 140 something kilowatt. And then two stalls shared one Supercharger stack. So most Tesla owners, they know this, that when you go to Supercharger, at least the V2, you have to share the A and 1B shares charger. So it means that if you're alone in the old days with a Model S, you will get a maximum 118 kilowatt. Then if someone plugs next to you, it will be actually the way the algorithm worked then is that the next car would get a minimum of 30 kilowatt. So it means that if you were pulling 120, rough number, your speed will drop to 90 kilowatt, and the second car will get 30 kilowatts. And then as your car starts throttling, let's say down to 50 kilowatt, then the other car would get 70 kilowatt, roughly around there, round about there. Actually, I think it was the sum was 150, yeah, back then. But so I mentioned that there was the 90 kilowatt, the first version, that is Supercharger version 1. And then the 150 kilowatt that they introduced, 120 to 150 kilowatt they introduced later, that is a Supercharger version 2 or the V2, which is still very common. And nowadays, when you hear about the V3, that's the 250 kilowatt. But with the introduction of V3 Supercharger, they made the chargers different. They don't use onboard charger from the car anymore. They actually use more industrial streamline, the same type they use for the stationary storage for power packs. And then we don't split it 50-50 or something before. Yeah, I forgot to mention, sorry, it's a little bit rambling here. So much information I'm trying to give you guys. That later logic or algorithm then splits it more evenly. So now if you go to V2, and even if I'm charging before someone else plugs in, you don't get 30 kilowatt. The second car doesn't get 30 kilowatt anymore. It will actually split 50-50 evenly, regardless of who came there first. But with a V3 Supercharger, you have a mega charger, which is a one big charger that can split between 4 stalls, and then each stall can get 150 kilowatt without splitting between anyone. So that's actually way better, because with the V2 Superchargers, usually the problem is that it works awesome when we have medium load, low load. Once you hit a certain threshold, usually if more than 50% of the stalls are occupied, then suddenly, you start tapping into, you have to start splitting the power, and then each car requires a longer time to finish. But practically, yeah, it's not that bad, because you're not taking 120 kilowatt for too long, fortunately or unfortunately. So in reality, the time is not, the charging time doesn't go up that much. But once you maybe fill up, let's say 80% to almost 100% of the stalls are occupied, then of course each car, they won't get 120 kilowatt anymore. They split roughly, and they get, let's say, 60-70 kilowatt each. So that's how it goes, where then you get more and more queues, especially around holidays and stuff. But with the V3, it's not like that anymore. Well, okay, so a little bit about how the superchargers work, and also I should talk about plug and charge, because ever since Tesla was introduced in 2013 in Europe, plug and charge has been working since day one. Plug and charge means that all you have to do is just plug it in, and then the supercharger communicates with the car and asks for the VIN number. Well, actually, technically VIN, because the N is, yeah. Ask for the VIN, and then it figures out which car this is. Okay, you're allowed to supercharge, go. The reason why it works flawlessly is because Tesla, they have their own hardware in the cars, and they have their own hardware in the chargers, so they can make the protocol work flawlessly. They have a homogeneous, what is that called? Homogeneous fleet. Whereas the reason why, even today, Ionity or other charging networks and other car manufacturers, the reason why they haven't made it live yet or made it work yet is because they have to make it generic. Like Ionity has to work for every car brand out there, and every car manufacturer also has to make it work with every charger manufacturer out there. ABB, Efacec, Tritium, Chempower, Alpitronic, Hypercharger, all these SysControl, they have to work, and there is a protocol for handshake, for communicating, for setting up charging and everything. And you would think it would be easy to just follow the protocol. Well, not every car does it correctly. I've seen it over and over again that nowadays, when you have new cars coming out, new EVs, some of them fails on certain chargers. It's it's not. I mean, it's more like random which one. I remember a Tesla Model S in Europe with CCS failed to handshake on the hypercharger from ABRP. And then I think also back in the days, Jaguar I-Pace has problem with handshake with the tritium chargers, but you know, they fixed that. Yeah, Tesla fixed that. Jaguar fixed that. So by the way, handshake is they call it handshake. It's when you plug it in and it starts, the car and the charger starts communicating and negotiating whatever. That's the handshake. Yeah, so handshake. Yeah, okay. So, by the way, yeah. So you know, so that's the reason why plug and charge doesn't work that great yet. Porsche is supposed to be the first car manufacturer to offer plug and charge, and also Mercedes EQC, you know, and Porsche Taycan, they're supposed to be the first one to make it happen. But that will only work with Ionity for now, right? What about Fortum with, or the other way? I mean, what about the ABB high power chargers, the tritium high power charger, and the Chem Power and all those? I mean, they also have to make it work against every car out there. So that's why it takes a while. It's almost like Apple versus IBM, right? Or I mean the PC, right? That Apple products, they just work smoothly because they are optimized. The software is optimized for the hardware and so on. I actually don't own Apple products, just a personal preference. But anyway, so what about the V3 supercharger then? Yeah, it also works. Sorry, I'm a little bit back and forth here. There is so much stuff to do to talk about, but so okay, maybe I should talk about Tesla opening up for car manufacturers, other car manufacturers. They've been open for a long time, but I think in recent tweet we heard something about Elon's mentioning that, yeah, you know, they're open low key. I even wonder what does it mean with low key. In photography, low key is something different, but okay. So does it mean that they are open for it now, or I mean, will it work? Yeah, I'm also talking about the handshake, because earlier this summer there was like a glitch where lots of cars, non-Teslas, were able to supercharge at it was a V3 or the one with the CCS. Okay, maybe I should also talk about the CCS. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that Tesla, they use modified Type 2. And those were for Tesla Model S and X in Europe. In America, they have their own Tesla plug, which is actually more robust, and it's been designed from the start to work with 250 kilowatts. But the modified Type 2 plug that we have in Europe and also in Asia, it seems to have a limitation of around 120 to 150 kilowatts. And if you're going beyond that level, then it's probably not safe, you know. So the modified Type 2 will never hit 250 kilowatts. And this is also the reason why we don't see 200 kilowatt in Europe. So I'll come back to that soon, because lately now we have been getting the CCS adapter in Europe. The CCS adapter allows you to use for S and X with the Type 2. They can use CCS charging stations any, like the Fortum 50 kilowatt or the tritium or something, you know. But there's a limitation on the adapter. At least what I found it as, it's limited to 370 amp, and with the pack voltage in Tesla, that usually means about 135 kilowatt maximum power. And so that's a limitation for them. So even if you go to let's say a 350 kilowatt Ionity charger with a Model S 100 kilowatt hour pack, you will only be able to get 120, about 135, almost 140 kilowatts. But the car is capable of taking more. But you see, this is the problem, because in Europe you have the modified Type 2 cable plug. So when you go to a V3 supercharger, you have to use a CCS adapter. or some existing V2 charging station superchargers. They have two plugs now. They have the CCS plug and the Type 2 plug. And those cables, by the way, the V2 superchargers, they are passively cooled. They have fairly thick cables, but they are passively cooled, whereas the V3, they are liquid cooled, so they are much slimmer and nicer, and they can actually sustain 250 kilowatt, whereas the V2 ones, I noticed it in summer that once the plug heats up, overheats, it starts throttling the speed. And some people have been putting a wet cloth on the plug to trick it. I don't recommend it because you might be tricking the system and the other parts might overheat. So, but I'm not sure. I'm just assuming, you know. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. And in America, they don't use the modified Type 2 and they don't use the CCS adapter. Actually, the CCS adapter is about to be released also in US. That's great. So they can also use other stations. But in US, those V3s, you can plug an S or X into a V3 and you get 200 kilowatts. But in Europe, even though the car can take 200 kilowatts S and X, you cannot utilize it. That's a bummer. Maybe in the future they'll figure out something, but as for now, it's not possible as far as I know. But okay, so yeah, what about opening up for other car manufacturers? You know, the initial thought would be Tesla owners be like, hell no, we don't want those stinking other cars to charge on our chargers, because then they're gonna clog them up. Well, if you think back in, let's say, rewind back to around 2015-16, when we only had Tesla Model S and then eventually Tesla Model X, people didn't complain too much about it. S and X, they kind of lived together happily side by side, but some early Model S owners, they were kind of almost hating on future Model 3 owners, because they were saying that, shit, you know, in the future when the more affordable Model 3s come out, the supercharger will be overloaded and clogged by these Model 3s. Well, but remember guys, that Tesla has always done it like this, that for every Tesla they sell, they take a little amount of money for building supercharger. Even in the early days, you can also buy, well, there was the 85 packs, the 85 Model SP85, S85, whatever, they came with free supercharging. But with the 60 pack, you didn't have free supercharging, but you can buy optional supercharging, free supercharging for life. You had to pay about 14,000 NOK. It was around 1,400 euros back then, and you would get unlimited access to it. So it means that Tesla has a price tag for every car that they sell. That, yeah, that's how they can fund the supercharger network. The more cars that they sell, the more superchargers they can build. And you have seen it over the years that, you know, back in the days, we are actually coming close to it now. Lillehammer was one of the first 6 superchargers in Europe, and they could only afford 6, and it didn't make sense back then to build too many superchargers. Tesla didn't have too much money and they didn't have too many cars on the road. But as Tesla sold more and more cars, and also with the introduction of Model 3, I don't know how much Tesla is charging per vehicle on the Model 3, but let's say rough number, maybe they take 1,000 euro extra of it for supercharger funding. They made a lot of money. I mean, they got a lot of money by selling the cars, and that's how they were able to just expand the supercharger network like crazy. I don't think I need to explain how insanely good coverage the supercharger network is throughout Europe and America and the rest of the world. So why am I talking about this? Well, everything has a meaning, right? Because it means that for every car Tesla sells, they can build more. So the more cars they sell, the more superchargers they can build. And if you look today, people with early Model S owners, do they complain about those stinking Model 3s? No, we live happily side by side, and it's actually better because the more affordable Model 3s, they help the rest of the fleet fund more and more superchargers. So we have so many superchargers now. We are just super happy with it. And what about other car manufacturers? Well, let's take, for example, Volkswagen. In Norway, we have Volkswagen e-up and e-Golf. They are the most common ones. Actually, the most common one is e-Golf, but also, and then ID3 is coming big now, coming in hot. And also a few e-crafters. But the big fleet is in e-Golf and now growing ID3. So, if, for example, Volkswagen would buy access to, whoa, is it Sunday today? Oh, Sunday drivers. If Volkswagen would buy access to Supercharger network, how are they gonna pay for it? Because remember that Tesla, they didn't build this for free. They had to wait. Man, the car detects 70 zone. It's an 80 zone. Okay, it's GPS based still. But Tesla, they had to get money to fund the Supercharger network. So in my head, every every ID3 and e-up and e-Golf out there should pay for it. So how are they going to do it? Because people who bought an e-Golf, a beaten down e-Golf, they're not going to pay 10,000 NOK or 1,000 euros to access a supercharger. So who's going to take that bill? Does Volkswagen, do they have to start counting how many cars they have worldwide or Europe-wide, and then say, okay, we have this many 100,000 cars, EVs, that can potentially charge, and then they have to multiply that by 1,000 euro, and then they're like, okay, Tesla, here's the money. Ka-ching! Tesla is like, Dankeschön, okay, we're gonna start building superchargers now to support the big fleet. Or will they bill every Volkswagen that wants to supercharge? Every owner needs to input 1,000 euros in order to be able to charge on it. But not only that, but they also have to pay per charge, pay per kilowatt hour or something. So you see, the plan B is not going to work. No one is going to pay that much, especially if you own an e-up that costs almost nothing. So this is going to be interesting to see how they solve it. Holy crap, that guy is driving slow. I can't overtake. There's a no overtaking zone here for the next 5-10 minutes or something. Well. Just have to sit back and relax and ta deg en bolle og smør deg med litt tålmodighet. Yeah. Grease yourself with patience. No, lubricate yourself with patience. So, and also another dilemma, like I mentioned earlier, is that how are they going to authenticate? Because between Tesla cars and Tesla Supercharger works great, but not between an e-up and whatever, and the Supercharger. So, like I mentioned, Taycan will work, and EQC will work with plug to charge, because I guess it has something in the hardware, in the CCS standard, it can communicate. But an ID3, an e-up might not have that. And how are they gonna give you access? Tesla can't just have it open for everyone like they had the glitch in this summer. And the reason, by the way, why any car could charge, even though if they didn't support plug to charge, is because it was just open. It was as if you were plugged into something, a charger that was in the open state, and there was no authentication of it. They were just, you want power, you get power. So how is Tesla gonna solve it? I think the only way to solve it is for Tesla to, this kind of sucks, but they have to introduce an app for non-Teslas. So you will come with your 2013 e-up to a Supercharger, and you have to use the app. and you have to look at the stall there and authenticate or start charging from there. That's the only way I think they're going to do it, and I don't think they will. Tesla is not going to waste money equipping their own chargers, the supercharger stalls, with the RFID readers. They will, if they're going to implement it, they will just use it via the app. And you know, Tesla, they have lots and lots of good software developers. They have a pretty strong software team, so they can make an app, you know, for it. So wow, the landscape here is quite nice though. Yeah. And then which car manufacturer will join the fray? I actually don't know, but you know, like I mentioned, that all early Model S early adopters back then, they were almost racist or discriminating Model 3s. And do you think that Tesla owners, existing Tesla owners, they will discriminate, let's say, upcoming Volkswagen charging customers? They might, but you know, just think about this: that every Volkswagen, if they get access, will help us. I mean, why are you hating, right? Because it's just another person driving an EV, which is good for the environment. Just remember Tesla's mission, which is to accelerate the transition to sustainable transportation, which means that it's a win-win for Tesla. Why did that dude suddenly speed up? Because I'm gonna hammer him or her. Okay, come on, stop being Norwegian. Sorry, I kind of lost focus here. Yeah. So, I mean, does it matter? You know, if it's me and I'm driving a Tesla and I supercharge, or if it's me and I sit in let's say wifey's Volkswagen and I'm supercharging, it's still the same person. We are still driving emission free. So, you know, I think you guys shouldn't discriminate other car brands that would in the future get access to superchargers, because just think about this. If other brands get access, we can have superchargers everywhere. It can be on every corner. Because oh no. Oh, it's a guy. Yeah, I was about to say it's always a woman, but this time it was not a woman. Yeah, I'm not discriminating. So for me, I'm up for it. I'm just Elon, go for it, or other car brands, Volkswagen or whatever, and just go for it. Get in there. But maybe the incentive for Volkswagen is not that great, because Volkswagen, they already have Ionity. They own a part of Ionity. Maybe car manufacturers, they are not a part of the group there, would be more you know, they want to get it. So encouraged, that was my word I was looking for, more encouraged to get it. For example, Polestar, they are not a part of it, and Jaguar. So maybe Polestar and Jaguar could get access to superchargers. I think if they do, the other people with Ionity be like, hey, why is not my brand part of that, the Tesla? I want to get on in there. Yeah, but you know, it's not a competition of measuring how big your dick is compared to your neighbors, because you know that there's always someone bigger than you. No, but it's all about moving together towards more sustainable charging. So I say it's good. And also another great advantage with Tesla Supercharger is that, you know, I mentioned that Tesla Supercharger plugs, they are really nice and slick and thin, and they are designed for 250 kilowatts, whereas the other HPC and the one Ionity uses, Tritium, they are designed for 350 kilowatt, and those cables, those plugs are so heavy. So you guys know this, right? When I talk about handshake problems, everyone who owns an e-tron or a Polestar 2, they know that, well, they should maybe, that when you do the handshake, it will fail sometimes because the plug is so heavy. So you have to hold the plug against the car while it's doing the handshake. You have to hold it for about a minute. You hear some click, 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 click. The plug starts vibrating, and then you can let go. And then it will, once it initiates and it starts charging, it works. So the CCS plug is just a Type 2 plug on the top with the CCS DC part on the bottom. But the communication happens on the top, the Type 2 part. So the problem is that because the plug is so heavy, it kind of pulls a little bit on the plug, and that means that you don't get 100% perfect contact with the Type 2 part on the top. And when it does handshake, sometimes the signals are a little bit weak. I think this is some analog signals, and that's why it fails. And that's why, for example, the e-tron and Polestar fails on handshake. But this can be fixed with software. That's what I heard. I would think it's just the binary 1 or 0, but no, supposedly there are some thresholds in the signals in the handshake. So car manufacturers, they can lower the threshold so it will work better. It will allow maybe more errors or something. I don't know how it works. But with V3 superchargers, those are just super slim and light. And I assume, without trying it, that those plugs will not have any problems with handshake. So it means even more trouble-free supercharger access. And I guess with if the future, if Porsche and Audi and Volkswagen would join the Tesla supercharger network, if those cars have plug and play, then sorry, not plug and play, plug and pray, no, just kidding, plug and charge, then they can just plug in and it will start charging. Whereas cars with let's say classic Ioniq or e-up, they have to use the app to start and stop charging. So that's the way I think it's gonna work. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I can't wait to see one day when Tesla announces that, okay, first car manufacturer to join the group is, yeah, we don't know. But very long rambling, interesting. Wait, can I use autopilot now? Whoa, I can. Okay, the lines are kind of diffuse, but it sees it. Okay, it sees it. That's great. But okay, I should also mention that as for now, the Tesla superchargers, they are only designed for 400 volt. But that's not the problem yet, because okay, in the future there will be 800 volt systems out there, like the new Ioniq platform, and Lucid also is coming out with 800 or 900 volt system. And then they won't work in the Tesla. Yeah, that is true. But think about this: how long is Chernobyl still alive? You know. So how long will 400 volts still be? Whoa. Okay. How long will 400 volt be still alive? I think 400 volt will still exist for at least 10-20 years. So there's no worries that, oh no, we have to quick moving over to 900 volt, otherwise we will be doomed. No, it's not going to be like that. And like you guys have seen, Tesla, they are really quick to adapt and change hardware. So back in the days, Tesla supercharger stalls, they were only the modified Type 2, and then last summer they were just replacing plugs like crazy, so that each stall now has the Type 2 that works with SNX directly, and also CCS, so it works with Model 3. And I also expect that if Tesla one day wants to move over to 800 volt system, they can just change some hardware and then it will work. And they already have the stalls and they already have the site there, so they just have to update some of the hardware, and then it will be ready for 800 volt system. But however, the 400 volt system will still exist for a long time. Just, you know, e-tron owners, they are super happy with the cars. They always brag about how fast it charges. I'm also super impressed of how fast it charges. Do they complain that, ah man, I wish I had an 800 volt system? That would be, no, they don't care. They don't care. They are super happy with 400 volt system. And I believe that even future cars coming out in the following years, even with 400 volts, if they can take 200 kilowatt or 250 kilowatt, they will be super happy. It will work just awesome for them. So the existing V3s will still be able to work in a long time, and Tesla will have lots of time to transition to any 800 volt in the future. But as for now, it's almost like, you know, how to put this, I mean 800 volt is great, but in my opinion 800 volt is still a little bit too early, because there are not that many cars that can take it. Take for example Taycan. Taycan, yes, in the beginning they announced that they bragged about 350 kilowatt, but when the car came out, it only peaked at around 260, 270 kilowatt. And not only that, but Porsche, they even push out a software update now that allows the user to choose to charge only at maximum 200 kilowatt. They say it's to preserve longevity of the battery. So why? Well, because apparently charging at those high C rating is not too healthy for the battery. So they, to me, it sounds like it was just a PR stunt to be like, okay, we can take 350 kilowatt, we are the fastest charging out there, but in reality it's not too healthy to push it that hard, even if it's an 800 volt system. Some people argue that, yeah, but because it's an 800 volt system, you can charge faster on it. Yeah, well, why is Porsche giving the user option to only go 200? They should go the other way, right? They should give the user option to pay extra and access 300 or 350 kilowatt fast charging, but they don't, because in my opinion the limitation is in the battery pack size. Lucid might be one of the best equipped for it now, because they will have a 130 kilowatt hour pack, but even 130 I feel like is still a lot if you want to push 350 kilowatt into the battery, unless they have really good battery chemistry. So I think with today's battery chemistry, in order to take 350 kilowatts in a healthy way, you should have 150 to 200 kilowatt hour pack. And we have seen recently that Volvo truck which has 300, no way, yeah, it seems like it could peak at 300 kilowatt and it had 200 kilowatt hour pack. So that's in my opinion what we need. Once 100, and let's say once cars coming out, or regular cars, once they have 150 to 200 kilowatt hour, then I think it makes more sense to have 350 kilowatt. And then the problem, of course, with the 400 volt system is that the amp or the current will be too high. So what I'm saying is that, yeah, with 150 to 200 kilowatt hour pack, then it makes more sense to go for 800 volt, but not when you have 50 to 70 kilowatt hour packs. Then the 800 volt is more like a gimmick. It's just like a megapixel race or something, and what about okay, well, future, I don't know about the fat cells. We don't know yet how the fat cells work, but yeah. So anyway, I think I'm running out of words. I've been talking. I think I pointed out most of the things I want to talk about when it comes to battery and all this, and it was a little bit more than just about Tesla opening up its Supercharger network. I think all this thing is really interesting. And yeah, okay, maybe I should also mention that to be honest, for me, I've been driving around a lot with Tesla, and as long as you have fairly efficient cars like a Model 3, even V2 superchargers which only peaks at 140 kilowatt is already pretty good. And I've talked about this before, that you, again, let's just mention e-tron owners. They are super happy, and the e-tron is it's even a thirsty car, and they get 150 kilowatt peak, and they are super happy with it. So you can imagine, even with future cars coming out, let's say 120 kilowatt hour battery packs, and if it can take 150, 200 kilowatt for an extended time, it will be plenty enough for most people. And I still hear the argument that people say that, yeah, but we want 15-minute charging stops. We don't want to wait too long, and once we need that fast charging in order for the masses to transition over. I don't fully agree, because I've been using Tesla Supercharger a lot, and I explain this over and over and over again, that you start driving with fairly full battery, and even if you don't start with full battery, if you can charge with 150 kilowatt or something in the future, you can just quickly fill it up and then you start driving. And the thing is that many people who think they need 10-15 minute recharging stops to 100%, they are used to the fossil mindset. Oh, I was thinking that was a milk truck. That was a milkman, not the fossil truck. I mean, not the fuel truck. But you have to think differently, because yeah, when you have a fossil car, you have to go to the gas station. You can't refuel at home, and then yes, it's kind of cumbersome to stand there and wait, and you don't want to stand and wait for too long. But with EVs, it's a completely different mindset. You can charge slowly at home or at work or somewhere, and everyone who owns an EV, okay, most people, right? Most people, they can slow charge somewhere, and that's where you get most of the energy from. And that means that for local runs, modern EVs nowadays, they can go 400, 500 kilometers before you have to charge. If you have to commute more than that, or if you drive more than that per day, then you have a problem. Yeah, no, actually, don't have a problem. Maybe you should consider moving closer to your work. So that means that for local driving, for daily driving, you don't need more than about 50 kilometers. It means that you don't have to visit a fast charger. You just plug it in at home. That's how it works. And it means that when you need to fast charge, like right now I'm on a long trip, you need to fast charge if you're on a long trip, or if there's some ad hoc stuff going on, then you have to fill it up. And usually that's not too big of a deal. You have to fill up around town. But when you're on a long trip, that's when you discharge it a lot, down to almost zero, and that's when you need to fill it up a lot. But like I always try to explain ever since 2013, is that after driving for 3-4 hours, you probably want to stop and stretch your legs and take a little break anyway. And even in the modern world, where the car needs only 15-20 minutes to fill it up, usually the car will reach 90% before you're done eating. And if you don't eat, okay, fine, you can still only charge 15-20 minutes. At least you should stretch your leg and go to the restroom, and then the car should fill it up to 70%. And then you can just keep going if you don't want to wait. But then eventually it will trigger some biological needs, like food break or whatever. So what I'm saying is that the human is the bottleneck here, not the car. Once you try an EV, a good EV, like a Tesla or an e-tron or a Taycan, you will find out that today's EVs have long enough range and they charge fast enough. The only exception might be if you have horses and you pull horse trailer and you need to refill a lot. That is a different story, of course. But for most people, for 95-99% of the people, today's EVs will work just fine with the existing charging time. But of course, charging even faster would be better. Yeah, faster is always better, right? So yeah, wow, that became a really long podcast, but I actually wanted to include the last part here because of the great landscape. So a beautiful day, almost no traffic, nice weather, -3 degrees Celsius. All the pilots have been working all this time, awesome, yeah. And I think that's gonna be it then, the end of the podcast. So let me know what you guys think about this time. You like it, right? You like it? How long should I make them? Because I'm not sure. If you guys like longer, like this one was, let me check here. Wow, 44. Do you like 45-minute podcast, or do you want shorter or longer? Yeah. Wow, should we wait? Wow, I have this. Just have to look at the landscape. It's almost like I don't want to stop, because there's This is the best part around here, Gudbrandsdalen. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. So, but I think I have to stop. Yeah, I have to stop eventually. We have to stop. Actually, the memory card is running out. Yeah, I should also mention this for people who always bug me about, oh, come on, go 4K, go 4K. No, the problem with 4K workflow is that it is so demanding. For example, my camcorder can record 4K, but the bit rate is 150 megabit per second, which means that, yeah, I have a 64 gig memory card now, and I fill it up within 1 hour. 150 megabit per second for 4K. Normally, I only shoot in 1080p, and the bit rate is 35 megabit per second. So it's 35 versus 150, and that is just not the main problem. The other problem is that the memory card, no problem. We can buy big memory cards, no problem. And this camcorder even has dual slots, but then eventually I have to dump it into my computer. I need lots of hard disk space, and I can't use SSD. I have to use conventional disk to store all this stuff, and I tend to archive lots of it, lots of this, yeah, footage. And then I need a pretty powerful machine to edit this and upload it and so on. But I've heard people say, rumors, that if you upload videos in 4K, it will look greater on YouTube, because the problem with 1080p is that I tried this. I uploaded it I render it with about 30 megabit per second bitrate, really high bitrate, but YouTube just crushes it. So actually, when you guys are watching my videos, it's kind of reduced quality versus when I watch it myself locally. The trick is that if you actually upscale, if I upscale my video, I can shoot in 1080p, everything, until I render it, and then I render it and upscale it to 4K at some high bit rate, let's say 30 to 50 megabit per second, and then I uploaded it. Then supposedly YouTube will keep high bit rate. So maybe I should try it one day, just to see, because that will work with my existing hardware and of course storage space. It's just the end part. It's basically just to do a little bit of weird workaround, so we can get higher bitrate on YouTube. So maybe I'll try it one day just to see how it goes. Yeah, interesting about the whole 4K video. But I think it's, again, also I should point out that with good optics, good processor, good camera, you can get stunning pictures with just 1080p. It's all about the optics. You know, a good camcorder with 1080p will create better pictures than a phone with 4K. It's all about the glass. Yeah. But anyway, I'm actually running out of memory space now. So I have more memory cards with me. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for watching, and talk to you later.